Okay, we are ready to begin. All right, I would like to welcome everyone to the Southline Community Schools Board of Education meeting on August 17th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Mr. Abate, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Tell.
Here.
Mr. Schwegler.
Here.
Mr. Dashner.
Here.
I'm here, Mr. Kennedy.
Here.
And Ms. Anshaw.
I am here. With that, we have a quorum, and we will move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone could please stand. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
to the flag
of the
of the
United
United States of America
and
and
to the
and to the
republic
republic
Which it
for which
stands,
it
for which
stands,
it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty and justice
with
for all.
liberty and justice for all. I'll be
All right.
so glad when we're in real.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we are moving on to public comment. Before we start, I just wanted to update everybody. Per board policy 1002, we're going to be implementing the following guidelines for our public comments going forward. We will no longer accept anonymous, placeholder, or fake names. We are going to be holding all of the commenters to the 3-minute maximum speaking time. And if you are going to write in your comments, we are holding everyone to a 500 character limit. So with that, we will begin with public comment. First up is Sarah Schultz. And she states, how will the block time work for students who dual enroll or attend an academy that is, let's say, the first 3 hours of school and block time is first hour, then fourth hour? Next up is Gloria Seguin, and she plans on calling in to talk about going back is important. Ms. Seguin, are you on the line? Okay, doesn't look like she's on the line yet, so we will continue and come back to her. Colleen Nelson states, I am relieved that our new superintendent's recommendation is to begin this year with online schooling. Thank you, sir, for making a tough decision to prioritize our kids' health and well-being. And next up is John Martika. And he states, after reading the plan submitted to the state, I am extremely disappointed in the school board for approving a plan when it is evident that neither the board nor the superintendent himself understood its contents. This board did a real disservice to the students in this community by making a decision based on fear and supposition instead of facts, data, and medical expert opinion. The CDC recommends children attend school in person. 240 to 360 minutes of screen time per day. Bad idea. Okay, Ms. Seguin, are you on the line? Okay, so we will give her another opportunity to speak at the end of the meeting. And with that, we will move on to item number 4, approval of agenda. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Kennedy, supported by Mr. Abate. Any questions or comments or changes to the agenda tonight? Okay, Mr. Abate, please call the roll.
Okay, Ms. Anshaw.
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
I vote yes, Mr. Dashner.
Yes.
Mr. Schwegler.
Yes.
Mr. Tell.
Yes.
And Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 5, approval of minutes. First off, I do want to thank Judy for compiling all of the minutes over the last 3 meetings. It was a tremendous job. So with that, do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the minutes from July 20th fiscal organization meeting, the August 5th study session, and the August 10th special meeting.
I'll second.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Clark, supported by Mr. Kennedy. Any questions or comments with the minutes? Okay, Mr. Abate, please call the roll.
Okay, I vote yes, Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Dashner.
Yes.
Ms. Danshaw,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Tao,
Yes.
and Mr. Schweigler.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 6 is approval of bills.
I'll move to approve the June 2020 prepaids, the July 2020 prepaids, the August 2020 AP bill run, the August 2020 bond bills, the July 2020 wires and ACH transactions, and finally, the July 2020 cash receipts report.
I'll support.
Moved by Mr. Dashner, supported by Mr. Clark. Any questions, comments, or discussion about the bills? Okay, Mr. Abate, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Schweigler,
Yes.
Mr. Dashner,
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Ms. Anshaw,
Yes.
and Mr. Tao.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 7, the bond authorizing resolution of the 2020 school building and site bonds.
Yes, good evening. On August 4th, 2020, the qualified electors of the issuer voted in favor of bonding the issuer for the sum of not to exceed $98,725,000. The proceeds to be used for the purpose of erecting, furnishing, and equipping additions to school buildings, remodeling, furnishing and refurnishing, equipping and re-equipping school facilities, remodeling for energy efficiency, including lighting, roofing, and HVAC upgrades, acquiring, installing, equipping, and re-equipping school buildings for the instructional technology, including classroom technology and student devices, purchasing school buses, and acquiring, preparing, developing, or improving sites and facilities, including athletic fields, structures, playgrounds, and parking lots. It has been determined by the board of the issuer that there is to be issued at this time a first series of bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $56 million. And the board has received a proposal from Stiefel, Nicholas and Company Incorporated in Okemos, Michigan, to act as the underwriters for the bonds. And prior to the issuance of the bonds, the issuer must either achieve qualified status or secure prior approval of the bonds from the Michigan Department of Treasury, pursuant to Act 34, Public Act of Michigan, 2001, as amended. With the voter-approved bond issue of $98,725,000, the next step is to start the process of the bond sale. It is the administrative recommendation to approve the resolution as presented.
I will then move that we approve the resolution for the bond authorizing for 2020 school building and site bonds.
I will second that.
Moved by Mr. Kennedy, supported by Mr. Abate. Any questions or comments?
I do have one. Stacy, are we qualified already, or is that a process we need to go through?
We don't usually do state qualified bonds, so we'll just have to get the Department of Treasury, and we usually go off of our own credit rating because we've had great success with that. So we've never gone with the state qualified bond, and no, this one is not a state qualified bond.
That's right. I was thinking backwards when you said Treasury. I was thinking opposite.
I just want to say thank you to the community for passing this bond. This is going to be a huge help to us, especially with being able to buy all the computers, in addition to all the site and building upgrades. So definitely a big thank you to the community. And a thank you to our Citizens Committee for campaigning and helping us with that process. So, any additional comments? Okay, Mr. Abate, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Tao,
Yes.
Ms. Anshaw,
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Dashner,
Yes.
and Mr. Schweigler.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 8, acceptance of a gift.
Yes, Ms. Hanshaw, I will take this. Principal Scaling met with representatives from the class of 1960 last week or just recently, and South Lyon High School received a teak wood bench to be used for a student gathering area. The donation is from the class of 1960 and valued at $1,200. The recommended action is that we accept this gift in accordance with policy 7003.
I'll move that we accept said gift. I want to thank Mr. Scaling for meeting with those individuals. That actually is the class of one of my aunts. And so somehow I got stuck in the middle of that whole process. But, these two gentlemen, one of them lives locally, and I believe the other one's in California. So we're excited to take the bench.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Clark, supported by Mr. Kennedy. Any additional comments or concerns? Yes, definitely thank him. That's really awesome that they're doing that. So, all right, Mr. Bate, please call the roll.
Okay, Ms. Henshaw,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
I vote yes, Mr. Dashner.
Sorry, yes.
Mr. Schwegler,
Yes.
Mr. Tell,
Yes.
and Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. All right, next up is, moving right along, is item number 9. It's the Oakland OCSBA proposal to amend the bylaws. This I will explain. For the board members, I sent everyone an email back on July 31st with all the bylaws for review. Each year, it's the Oakland Schools Board of Education. Their resolution and bylaws committee review their bylaws and recommend an amendment to the board of directors and member districts. This year, the OCSBA found that their bylaws placed restrictions on the way that they conducted their business during the pandemic. Several of the proposed amendments address those restrictions during any declared local, state, or national emergency. The board of directors has reviewed the proposed amendments and approves these recommendations forward for a vote for their member districts. In accordance with their bylaws, each member district Board of Education has one vote to approve the recommended amendments. The voting period is designated as August 1st, 2020 through September 11th, 2020, no later than 5 p.m. So with that, can I get a motion to approve the recommended amendments as presented?
I'll move said amendment.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Clark, supported by Ms. Ertel. Any questions or comments? Okay. Mr. Bate, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Tell,
Yes.
Mr. Schwegler,
Yes.
Mr. Dashner.
Yes.
I vote yes, Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
and Ms. Henshaw.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item number 10, administration. First up is legislation. Anything to report?
Thank you, President Hanshaw. If I may, could I make a brief comment about the bond as well? I meant to last week and did not. I'm certainly late to the game, but want to thank the committee the community for their extreme generosity and support of the district. I want to thank the facilities committee for their more than year, the facilities, their more than their year of work to put together that list of projects. Certainly commend the board for their courage for putting it on the ballot in August, and not to overlook former Superintendent Baker, as well as interim Superintendent Heisch, and the many, many community members, parents, students, and alike who have done a lot of work over the course of the summer helping to get the word out. So I would be remiss if I let another opportunity go by without thanking the many, many people for making this possible for the school district.
Thank you.
With that, I'm sure you're aware, there was quite a bit of activity in Lansing over the weekend. Unfortunately, none of it had to do with establishing our school budget for the 2021 school year. So we sit here 6 or 7 weeks into our school year, which technically started on July 1, without knowing our funding situation, which is certainly continues to be concerning with each passing day. But the Senate did pass a series of return to school bills on Saturday. Those were passed by the House today. They have not been approved, so I want to stress that. but I would like to share at least some of the highlight. Again, there's a lot of information to process, but if I may share just the highlights. The first has to do with the pupil count for the 2021 school year. If signed into law by the governor, the count would be, as opposed to 90% from this fall and 10% from the previous spring, it would be a blend of 75% of last school year and 25% of this school year. Again, not in effect yet, but was passed by both the Senate and the House, awaiting approval of the governor. Also in that series of bills was an extended continuity of learning plan. So districts would be required to develop an extended continuity of learning plan and submit that to its ISD. That is in addition to the plan that was submitted and due this past August 14th. There are a series of additional requirements in that bill, all of which we're still going through. One would be bringing it back to this board for approval every 30 days. So again, we'll continue to work with folks to understand the nuances of the legislation if and when it is signed into law. But I'm just trying to give you the broad strokes since we have the opportunity tonight. Student attendance, it is my understanding that the 75% daily attendance is being waived, and in its place, the district must ensure that at least one monthly two-way interaction occurs between at least 75% of the students and their teachers throughout the school year. This one, again, there will be a lot to this, especially when you introduce any form of virtual remote learning. The attendance gets very complicated. So we'll have a lot still to go through and understand with that. Two other items in the bills. One is the days and hours requirement. As you know, currently, each school year is required to have a minimum of 1,098 hours and 180 days. And it is my understanding, if signed into law, that those will be waived. And then lastly, has to do with benchmark assessments. The district would be required to administer to all students in grade K through 8 a standardized or local benchmark assessment within the first 9 weeks of the school year, and then a second time prior to the end of the school year. Again, those are simply the main categories and the very broad strokes of what they entail. There is always a lot of complexity and layer to them, and we'll continue to work with groups like the Tri-County Alliance and MASA and the Oakland County Superintendents to gain a deeper understanding and be able to implement this legislation if and when it becomes law. So that's just for informational purposes.
Anybody have any questions or comments regarding legislation?
I could. Mr. Archibald, could you possibly explain? I noticed there was some caveat in the bill that required that we address the community on a a monthly basis to provide them an update of what we're going to do. Exactly what does that entail?
What I understand it to be under the extended continuity of learning plan is that the board has to recertify the plan every 30 days. So we would come back before the board